Hi, everyone. Meteorologist Bill Rentschler alongside meteorologist Carmelo Lattuca in the 1011 Now streaming studio. Carmelo, it's a big weekend.
It's a very big weekend, Bill.
Because it is the beginning of astronomical fall.
Yes.
And many people have been waiting for this. Danielle, again, who's my cohort here in the streaming studio, has already hung up all of her Halloween fall decorations, and I'm sure many people are probably in the same boat as her. But it is exciting because, again, just marker of the year, changing of the seasons. I think everyone is a little bit sick and tired at this point of seeing some of the hot conditions. It's going to be hot today in the mid-90s, but feeling much more fall-like for much of really the next week.
I mean, we could struggle to hit 60 on Sunday.
I'm all about it.
I'm all about it, too. I'm ready. I mean, do I hate a day like today? Not really. I mean, it's going to be a dry heat, It's not as humid as yesterday. It's going to be comfortable, It's still a little hot, I don't mind wearing the T-shirt and shorts still, but I do love the changing of the seasons. I'm ready for fall weather. I'm ready for sweater weather, Bill.
Sweater weather.
I think it's going to be a fun time.
And I think for many people, they're always excited to see the leaves change color.
Absolutely.
One of my favorite things to do is we try and do it every year. We don't always get to do it, but we like to go out. One of our favorite places we like to vacation as a family is out in the Rocky Mountains, going out to Colorado, Estes Park, Winter Park, something like that. And to see the color in the mountains, it really just is extremely picturesque. And again, we're already starting to see there are some spots. At my house, I was at my sister's house this last week, and there are some trees that are already beginning to at least have some spots of color.
And I think we're going to have a very vibrant changing of the colors this year, and we're going to explain why as we talk about our little presentation coming up, but I think it's going to be a really fun time.
Yep, exciting. So again, if you're joining us, Weather Academy, we just kind of get a chance to dive into a topic. Again, normally in a newscast, we only have a couple minutes, 3-4 minutes, and we're obviously talking about the forecast more than anything else, but now we get to kind of do a little bit of a deep dive in today. So it's going to be astronomical versus meteorological seasons.
Yes.
If you remember a couple weeks ago, we were hyping up, it was the beginning of meteorological fall.
And it was going to feel like it, maybe albeit a little briefly, because, if you've experienced the temperatures outside this week, it's generally been at or above 90 degrees, so really not feeling like fall, but that'll be changing.
Yep. So let's go ahead and dive in. Officially, we'll just start with, hey, astronomical fall begins on Sunday. Officially, it's at 8:43 in the morning.
Yes.
On Sunday, and that is when astronomical fall technically begins. It's kind of a weird, it's just like, boom. It's just like
at this time, very specific.
And people smarter than me have figured out the exact times, and again, that's all done with computers now. But the astronomical seasons, again, these are based on the position of the Earth relative to the sun, and again, you either have the equinox, like we have this go around,
right,
or you have a solstice. So again, kind of marking the positions of the sun and the Earth, and again, a lot of it has to do with the tilt of the Earth as well.
Absolutely.
The axis tilted by 23.5 degrees,
right.
And if there's no tilt, we'd have no seasons.
No,
and we'd have the same weather all year round.
Absolutely. No, it's just the way the Earth is oriented and where it's at in its position of the year, because we know it's rotating around the sun, and we're getting to that point where the northern hemisphere, we're getting less sunshine. Less sunshine, it's not going to be as warm. That's why our temperatures are going to begin to cool down. In a few months, Bill, it's going to be winter, and then we're going to be seeing snow.
It's going to be cold. And so we'll look at those positions here in just a second. But if you compare it to the meteorological seasons, again, we just like to make things a little bit simpler.
Absolutely.
Carmelo.
I mean, we know what the coldest months of the year are.
Yes.
We got December, January, and February, and we know when the warmest months of the year are. And they're very close. I mean, astronomical to meteorological fall, like you said, only a couple weeks apart.
Couple weeks. But yeah, we just like to make it easy. Again, based more on the annual temperature cycle. So we say, hey, what are the hottest 3 months of the year? That's meteorological summer. What are the coldest 3 months of the year? That's meteorological winter. And then spring and fall are just the transitions between those two.
Absolutely.
And we're going to see, again, a really good example of that trend, because you get into those seasons, that's when we can really have the big swings in temperatures. And today and into Sunday are a perfect example of that. We're going to be in the mid-90s today, but then on Sunday we're going to struggle to maybe even get to 60 degrees.
Very powerful cold front coming through.
And so you have this fight that happens. I mean, it is a bare-knuckled brawl sometimes between winter trying to arrive or summer hanging on, or vice versa in the springtime.
Absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of factors that go into that. But like I said, we have a really powerful cold front moving through, but we're going to see a lot of cloudy, overcast conditions on Sunday. Hopefully some potential for heavy rainfall, and that's going to help us struggle with our temperatures too. But let's take a look now at the position of the Earth and duration to the sun at different points of the year.
And so again, this is we're talking astronomical seasons here. So the vernal, so spring or autumnal equinox, basically, you have the sun right over the equator.
Yes. So equal amount of sun directly above the equator. All areas receiving about 12 hours of daylight. That's different with the solstice, shortest day of the year or the longest day of the year, depending on whether it's the winter or the summer solstice.
And it's roughly 12 hours.
Yes.
It's like technically for us in Lincoln, it's like 12 hours and 8 minutes.
And you get the summer solstice. That's the first day of summer, June 20th or June 21st. I think it changes. Mm-hmm. And then we have the center of the sun directly above the Tropic of Cancer. Longer days in the northern hemisphere. And we were all used to seeing that. We love seeing the sunset closer to 8, 9 o'clock at night. Shorter days in the southern hemisphere.
Yeah, and so this is the time of year when, if you're down in Antarctica, you get
no sunlight. But if you're in the Arctic Circle,
you have 24 hours.
Could you imagine that?
I can't.
I don't want to live in Alaska, but I know friends that do, and I envy them sometimes.
It is interesting, though, even if just going north and south a little bit, if you're traveling, my wife and I like to vacation in Belize every couple of years.
Oh, okay.
And so Belize is close enough to the equator that it doesn't matter what time of year we go. The sun sets at 6 p.m. Just about every day, and the sun's up at around 6 a.m. every day.
What a perfect cycle, though, right?
And so my wife has family in Minnesota, up in northern Minnesota. So we've gone to the lake up in northern Minnesota. And if you go in the summertime, the latest sunset gets here in Lincoln is right around 9 o'clock, a few minutes after. But it's even later as you get just to northern Minnesota. It's
9 o'clock, it seems late enough.
I know. Mosquitoes will also carry you away up there. But
absolutely.
That's a whole other thing for a different day.
And then vice versa, we have the winter solstice, first day of winter, December 20th, December 21st. As opposed to being over the Tropic of Cancer, it's over the Tropic of Capricorn. Shorter days in the northern hemisphere, longer days in the southern hemisphere. So the Antarctic Circle is, again, that 24 hours of daylight. And
so what you can notice, again, here in Lincoln throughout the course of the year is we actually see the position of the sun will change at sunset. So there's, probably coming up here this weekend or throughout the next week, but during the equinoxes, it almost lines up perfectly with the east-west streets in Lincoln. So if you're driving west at sunset, the sun is just right in your eyes. But in the winter, it's further to the south. In the summer, it's further to the north, because the sun kind of moves in the sky based on, again, the position of the Earth and the sun.
I forget what time of year it is, but have you ever seen the
Manhattan Hedge?
Yes. Mm-hmm. I don't know when it is, but I mean, people literally flock to New York City to go walk down one of the streets and see it, like the sun set perfectly with the horizon.
Yep. It's the pictures that you see from that are absolutely incredible.
How they designed that and whether they knew that was how it was going to be like that immediately, that's just pretty cool.
People smarter than you and
yes.
I, Carmelo. And again, the other thing is that's wild is people long time ago figured all this out and did all this. And again, without modern technology, this was just people using telescopes, looking at, and figuring all this stuff out. So again, kudos to them.
So one more time, meteorological fall, September, October, November. I mean, the first of the month, we're average high temperature, 85 degrees. I think yesterday was the first day we dropped below 80 degrees. We're at 79 now. So by the beginning of October, we'll go down to 74. And by the end of November, the high temperature will be 45 degrees on average.
Yep. And so, again, you can see obviously the transitional month, again, away from summer to winter. Once you get into meteorological winter, December, January, and February, you just see there's not nearly as much variability in the temperatures. Your average highs go from the mid-40s, our coldest period, kind of the first couple weeks of January there, down to the mid-30s, and then back to the mid-40s by the end of February.
I'm not ready. I'm not ready for it, Bill. I mean, I'm ready for fall, and then by the end of fall, maybe I'll be ready for winter. I'm ready for a little bit of snow.
For a couple good snows.
I was talking about it with Brad. I'm ready for a good snowstorm or two. I'm not ready for wind chill.
Everyone
said every Nebraskan ever.
Everyone's excited for winter to start because then you get Christmas, and then you have New Year's. Everyone wants a white Christmas, and then you don't mind snow falling on maybe New Year's.
And then you realize there's about 2 to 3 more months of that. Sometimes 4.
And then you're like, I'm done. I quit. I'm gonna go into my hibernation.
Yes.
And so then like fall, spring is that transitional season. I told you
I know,
you should click, and then
Don't worry.
Click. I'm sorry.
Now we're gonna go.
There we go.
Here we are.
Like fall, spring is that transitional season again. So you go from the mid 40s to the low 80s for those high temperatures, and then into summer again.
Very little
variation. Our hottest period, sort of climatologically speaking, second half of July, where our average highs do tick up to around 90 degrees. Stay there for about 2.5 weeks.
How many times we reached triple digits this year?
I think 6.
I think so too. And the average is 4. So
the average is 4.
It's a little warmer than average summer, but
pretty typical.
Yes,
pretty
Pretty
typical.
typical.
And we also mentioned it, but again, you also have the changing daylight color on here. I colored this to match the average high temperatures through this time frame. But this goes from the summer solstice, so again around June 20th, through the winter solstice, again, which is in late December there. So again, you can see the colors changing. You can see the transition of fall. But this is the hours of daylight that we have here in Lincoln. Again, this is a little different for other locations, Grand Island, North Platte, but again, it's pretty close. But again, you can see we're on a pretty good downward slope right now. Sunset is right around like 7:25, I think, right now.
Yes. I think it might be sooner than that.
It might be. It's close. It's between 7:15 and 7:30 right now. Which again, you go back to the summer solstice. Sunset was,
almost 9 o'clock. If not,
it was I think it was 9:02.
Yeah,
9:02. So we've just in terms of sunset time, we've lost probably an hour and a half over the course of the last couple months.
But 5.5 hours, essentially, if I'm doing my estimated math correctly, from the summer solstice to the winter solstice. And I mean, it is very gradual. Nobody's thinking, oh my God, we lost 5.5 hours. I mean, maybe they are.
They
Maybe
could
they're
be
thinking, hey, remember what happened in June? The sun was setting at 9 o'clock. But yeah, 12 hours and 8 minutes coming up on Sunday, and then it's only going to get shorter after that.
It will. And one of the things that we do see with less daylight is we see the changing of the colors of the leaves, which we already talked about how much we enjoy.
I do enjoy it. I mean, it's just Mother Nature's way of telling you, things are getting cooler, and it's basically telling you, go put on a sweater. It's going to be a little cooler outside. But we are no plant people,
We are not.
We are not no botanists. But I do enjoy looking at this graphic and at least trying to explain what happens. So we have the cooler weather, the tree's chlorophyll breaks down, leaving other chemicals that cause the color changes. So let's see if I get these right. We have chlorophyll for green, xanthophyll for yellow, carotene for orange, and anthocyanin for red.
And there are some factors
that go into this
that will change this, especially if it's wet, if it's dry, how early maybe you have a freeze, things like that. But bright colors are more likely when late summer is dry and autumn has sunny days, cool nights.
Look how dry August was. So, that's kind of one of those things I was trying to tease a little bit earlier was one of those indicators that why we could have very vibrant color changes as we get into, the next few weeks or so. I think we were the top 25 of driest August. We had a very wet July, and essentially that was all at the beginning of July on 1 or 2 days, if you recall. But
and then the very end.
And then the very end. But very dry August, very dry September so far. So I would hope at least, it's going to be one of the silver linings to having not a lot of precipitation.
We'll have to watch, though, again, because a lot of it, too, will be how is our early fall. If we have an early snow, especially if we have an early, wet snow.
Yes.
That can really strip a lot of the leaves off the trees, which I'm not a fan of. We have a lot of, I think they're pear trees in our neighborhood. And especially in the spring, they flower, the beautiful white flowers. And sometimes if you have, again, a late spring snow or some early spring thunderstorms, they can really just kind of strip those. And so we talked about this, but again, the colors, what that causes the chemicals in the leaves that turn them different colors. So low temperatures above freezing will lead to more brighter red colors. An early frost will kind of dull the color, and then rainy overcast days tend to increase the intensity.
We might just be in luck
colors,
if we get more of these days that we're expecting on Sunday.
Yeah, on Sunday again. Still a lot of green, so I don't know if we'll quite get it. But I bet if you did it a month from now, if we had a cloudy, really rainy day, which hopefully we will, that would really help those colors just pop just a little bit.
So we were talking about an early frost, and our average first freeze. It's coming up. I think we're very close to it, actually. Is it? Let me see if I get the color scheme right. Is that mid-October for us,
That
Bill?
is mid-October for us.
So early September and even late September in parts of Nebraska, especially in north central Nebraska, by the end of this month, if they haven't seen it already. I don't think they have. I think our lowest temperatures have been in the low 40s. I haven't really seen much in terms of 30-degree readings.
I think the Panhandle's seen a couple 30,
but nothing below
30s,
32, right?
Nothing below 32 degrees yet. But it is coming. We have had some crisp mornings in Lincoln. I think the lowest we've been so far is 42.
42 sounds right.
42.
I don't think we've been in the 30s.
And so it will be coming sooner rather than later. Again, I have some mums out on my front porch that hopefully I can hang on to them for a couple more weeks here. But again, this will be happening sooner rather than later. You'll notice the mountains, again, Rocky Mountains. A lot
Look
of
at the variation. Just Colorado right there.
I know.
Late August to, what is that, mid-October?
Yep. And so some of the mountains have already seen, again, especially the high elevations, they've already seen several inches of snow in some of those spots. So they've already seen that first freeze come and go. But again, late September through mid-October is generally in Nebraska when we see our first freeze, and that's 32 degrees or colder.
I was looking at the Skycast for Sunday, and you see all the
It
green
had-
in Nebraska, and you see the little bit
There
of blue and the
was-
pink
there
out
was-
west. I'm like,
yep.
oh my goodness.
There was some snow in the Panhandle, or not in the Panhandle, in the mountains.
Yes.
Out there in Colorado. So if you look at the actual numbers for Lincoln, on average, the 30-year average, so from 1991 to 2020, our first freeze is October 7th. So what's today's September 20th? So
About
that's
3 weeks
2.5
or so.
weeks.
Yeah, 2.5, yeah.
2.5 weeks for our first freeze on average. The earliest first freeze we ever had
It's already passed.
Already passed that date. That was September 11th. That was way back in 1940. The latest we've ever seen our first freeze, you're into November. That was in 1956. That's very, very late. Last year, we were kind of keeping an eye on it because it was getting late into October.
I mean, yeah, it's about, 20 days after the average first freeze, at least from the 30-year average.
October 27th was when we finally saw the thermometer drop below 32 degrees.
A lot of variation in the last 4 years, going from the end of October to the beginning, the end of October to the beginning. And then,
but then before that,
it seemed very consistent. I was saying this a little while ago, from the 11th to, essentially the 14th to the 16th. So it pretty much lines up, There's always going to be some variation. Like I said, you could have above average temperatures in fall. We could still see, I'm not going to say we won't get, even Brad said it earlier, we could still hit 90 one more time. I'm not going to say never.
October 20th.
Is the latest one?
The latest
I think we were talking about that.
90-degree day.
That's about a month away.
It's a month away.
Yeah.
So 30-year average is October 7th. If you look at the averages since records started back in 1887, the average is October 11th.
And there's not
day.
Yes, it's at 11 day. And there's not a lot of variation in these temperatures either. 28 to 32 degrees. So it's not like when it first happens, it's going to be, oh my God, it's going to be below 0 degrees.
It's usually we're just dipping.
Just below 32.
Just dipping our toe in it.
Saying ain't snow, Bill.
If you're talking about sub-freezing temperatures, Carmelo, you also have to talk about snow. Earliest snowfalls on record for us here in Lincoln, the earliest ever that we saw a snow was actually in the month of September.
It surprises me there's only one September snowfall.
September 29th, 1985. Your average low is
right.
still well above freezing by late September. So
that's fair.
It was a very
unusual. Yes.
We've
seen our fair share of unusual events.
We do. And it was less than an inch. And again, I wasn't around in 1985.
Can't say I was either.
We'll have to talk with Ken.
Yes.
But I imagine that 8/10 inch of snow wasn't around for very long.
No, I'm sure that melts pretty quickly. But look at the second one. Over 6.5 inches.
October 9th, 1970.
And most of these are in the first half to... actually, it's pretty even split between the first half and second half of October. But snowfall ranges are all over the place. We're talking about less than an inch to almost 4, 5, 6 inches. So,
and these are the 12 earliest snows.
Yes.
Just outside the list is October 1997.
Everyone, whether I was in school, anyone I talked to, oh, you weren't here for it. I wasn't even alive for it.
Nope.
But the 97 October snowstorm, what is it, 13.3, I think, something like that.
13.3 inches of snow.
Oh my
and again,
God.
if you go back, that it rained, I think, almost 2 inches beforehand.
See, that probably had something to deal with all the damage.
And so then you had a transition from rain. And obviously, when you have the transition from rain to snow, you have some ice. So everything kind of, you had some ice. You still had trees that were basically full. And then it just transitioned to a very wet, heavy snow. Again, all the tree damage we had on the July 31st storm this year, it was still nothing compared to the tree damage we had from the October snowstorm. Many areas were without power for a long, long time. I remember I went and stayed at my aunt's house for probably the better part of a week. I was like, this is great. I don't have school. Like, I'm going to go play in the snow. But my parents were probably a little bit more stressed out.
We did have sustained wind speeds of over 60 miles per hour for about 20 to 30 minutes. And we had scattered 80-mile-per-hour wind gusts. But the strength of trees are going to be different all across the town. I don't care how strong your tree is. The weight of a quarter inch of ice, a tenth to a quarter inch of ice, it doesn't matter what tree it is.
Well,
Those branches are coming down.
And then wet, heavy snow on top of it. And since you was so early in the season, a lot of trees still had a lot of leaves, so you're holding even more weight because it's holding even more snow, more ice. And so, again, I don't remember it because, again, I was so young, and I was like, I'm just happy I don't have to go to school. But they said it sounded like basically gunshots. The trees just breaking all over the place. So those are the earliest snows, but on average, we are still several weeks
We're almost
away.
2 months away.
Yes, from our average first snowfall. That's November 18th. Again, so it's almost to Thanksgiving. The earliest ever, again, we mentioned was September 29th. The latest first snow
was actually quite a lot. 7.5 inches, but it was New Year's Eve.
On New Year's Eve in 2006.
So never seen a snowfall into the following year. It's always happened the earliest September, but the latest December. That's kind of interesting.
It is. It is interesting. Every time I see that, I'm like, is the data off?
But look at it, how close these last 10 years were for the first freeze. Mm-hmm. They are not even close for this. We were talking about 2023 November 25th, 2022 December 19th. A few years before that, we had 3 stretches of October days with snow.
And one of the 3.5 inches on October 14th, I remember because I was
going to say the same thing.
And if you ask Ken Shimmick about it, he will shake his fist at because it was like a Sunday and I was off, but Ken had to work on a Sunday for some reason, and it kind of jumped up on us because we had thought there might be a little bit of snow, but it was more than expected.
Yes.
And again, the trees were full, and all of a sudden you had 3.5 inches of wet, heavy snow, and so there was some tree damage, but it was kind of caught us with our hand in the cookie jar a little bit. Little off guard there.
Forecasting is tricky all on its own, but there's a huge difference between rain forecasting and snow forecasting. But I remember that the 2018 one, the October 14th one, the first year of school in Nebraska, and I mean that 2018-2019 season for Snowfallville was incredible.
It was,
and I think we had the 2019 was those massive floods. I mean, we had over 50 inches of snow by the end of the year, and then temperatures warmed in the 50s and 60s, and then it started raining, and I'm like,
moving to this state, this is nuts.
It was a pretty interesting snowfall. But yes,
it was
quite the variation, but still a ways away to go.
It was. All right, so obviously, we talked about a lot there. Meteorological versus astronomical versus meteorological seasons, excuse me. And then again, some of the things that we're looking for here as we head over the next couple of weeks in terms of color change, decreasing daylight, first freeze, first snowfall. Lots of things to talk about.
Absolutely.
We said we were going to talk about before what we were going to talk about next week, but we never actually did.
No. So, what are you thinking off the top of your head?
I don't know. I don't have my list in front of me here.
That's okay.
I didn't open my Excel spreadsheet, so we're going to have to. People are just going to have to wait and find out.
Yeah, that's okay. We'll keep you on your toes. I mean, we've had some interesting topics. I think this is our first one without any true severe weather. I mean, we did tornadoes, hail. We did the Cape and the Cap, and then hurricanes. This was like a very calm weather academy.
It was. But still exciting because, again, I'm excited for fall to start. I'm excited for the cooler weather. I've always been a proponent, and I think I can say this because we're on streaming only, but you can always put on more clothes. You can only take off so many layers of clothing.
That's true.
Before you just can't go outside. I mean, you could, but people will stare at you.
God, the wind chill. I just can't. I'm not even excited.
You just get the Gore-Tex jacket like George Costanza, and you'll be okay.
All right.
You'll be okay. All right. I appreciate everyone for tuning in and watching. Get another edition of the Weather Academy. We'll have another edition next week. Again, we usually try and do these on Thursdays. Again, my Thursday got a little bit full, so we bumped it over here to Friday. Appreciate everyone for tuning in and for watching. Keep it tuned to 10:11, especially, again, with rain chances this weekend. So, again, and the forecast is changing a little bit.
It is.
It does look like maybe our heaviest rain maybe trending a little bit further to the south. But it does still look like it's going to be much cooler, cloudy, maybe a bit breezy on Sunday as well. So outdoor activities this weekend. Make sure you check the 1011 weather app. Carmelo will have the latest.
Absolutely.
All right. Appreciate everyone for tuning in and watching. Hope everyone has a nice Friday. Hope everyone has a nice weekend.